Hey everybody, this is day 20 of the Rogue Tanks game development, and I am going to show you what I've got here, and then I'll get into some of the code. Mainly, the thing that I've got today is this final level. The idea is that after you've played through like the random levels and a boss and a challenge, then before the final boss, you'll go into this final level. And what I have here is, this is a wall that blocks bullets, and it will disappear once all these first group of enemies are destroyed. Just like that. And I'll show you how I coded that, but another thing is that unlike any other previous room, whoops, hold on. This room will in fact scroll over to the side. So I'll show you how I did the camera for this. And obviously I don't want to show you all those enemies are grouped up. Oh, and I also added this tank up here. So whatever tank you have will show up here. So if you're using like a different type of tank, it'll show that tank up here. Just to remind you like what you're using in the final results kind of screen. So I've created this object called a gate. And the create event, it has this destroy, which is -1, and the step event says that whenever the number of enemies is less than the destroy variable, then it has a spark effect and it destroys itself. The destroy factor starts at -1, so it won't ever destroy itself normally, but that's why you come in here and you go into the creation code and you add destroy equals instant number of enemies -5. And the 5 is simply these first 5 enemies here. So it makes it very easy for me to count when to destroy this wall. It's the total number of enemies is reduced by 5. And I do that a bunch more times, like this one. This next one is then -9 because there's 4 more tanks. And I just continue adding on every group of enemies. There's like another wall, and it just keeps going. And so that is how I have the barriers set up. This itself is a child object to the wall object, which has all the code for bouncing of bullets and things. The camera, go to my main game object. So if room is final level, because this is the only room that I'm going to have that scrolls, if instance exists player, then you create this variable that is a player and instance nearest to the room width, which means the far right side of the room. And height doesn't even matter, I just divide it by 2, which is just the center of the room. It finds the player who is the farthest to the right, and it then makes x equals that player's x. So this game object moves to wherever the farthest right player is. And in here, viewports and cameras, we have enable viewports, and viewport 0 is visible, and I have it tracking object game. And this is the only one of my rooms that has this. Every other random room has no viewport stuff. It's just automatic because the entire room is just what the screen size is. But for this level that's going to scroll, I set it up so that it will track the game object, and the game object will move to wherever the farthest right player is. It also works in reverse, going back left. Whoever is the farthest right player still, if they move back left, as long as there's nobody else past them, the camera will move back, because the camera is tracking where game object game is. And object game is going to go to wherever the farthest right player is in this room. The borders here, the horizontal border, that determines how far the player needs to go in order to move the screen. The speed here, -1, that just means it's going to move the camera instantly to wherever it needs to be. There's not going to be like a tracking motion. But the vertical border doesn't really matter because the camera can't move up or down because it's limited by the size of the room already. I've also finished making levels. That pretty much took most of my time, was making the final level and the last few levels to put in to the game. And then the last thing is the sound effects. I think I mentioned last time I didn't need to do anything with the sound effects for the volume adjustment, but I did do some adjusting with multi-hits. Previously, if a sound effect was triggered by like 2 different instances at the same time, it would double up on the volume. Now that won't happen because right here, this is the sound I want to play, sound hit. If that sound is already playing, it stops it and then it plays it. So there's no chance of it playing at the same time as another instance, because if one instance goes first, this will stop it. So now the problem doesn't happen. So that is the updates for today. If you have any other questions, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.